All right. Hello, folks. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and a warm welcome to the Global Product Leadership Festival 2026 by the Product Leader Forum in partnership with the Institute of Product Leadership. Now, whether you're joining from India, the United States, Europe, Middle East, or anywhere else in the world, we're delighted to have you here with us today. My name is Vishal, as you can see on the screen, and I'm really excited to host you for today's evening. Now, the Global Product Leadership Festival bring together practitioners, product leaders, designers, and innovators to discuss what is actually working across three focused weeks on AI product design, AI product management, and AI product leadership through a masterclass, a fireside chat, and an interactive AMA. This week theme is AI product design, and now we have an amazing speaker lineup with exciting session. Let me go back to the screen. All right, before we begin, let me take a quick minute to introduce the organization. Product Leader Forum is a nonprofit community that has founded in the year 2014 with a simple vision to bring together product leaders who believe in learning, sharing knowledge, and helping one another grow. Now, over the years, PLF has hosted 40 plus conferences, 100 plus community events, and built a thriving network of 6,000 plus product leaders, positively impacting more than 10,000 plus professionals. We've had the privilege of welcoming speakers from organizations such as Google, Microsoft, Oracle, Philips, and many other leading companies across the globe. Today, we are proud to continue that journey in partnership with the Institute of Product Leadership through the Global Product Leadership Festival 2026. Now, before I begin, just a quick note. This isn't just a webinar; it's a conversation. If you have a question, feel free to post it in the Q&A throughout the session, and we will take them up once the speaker concludes. All right. Let me just quickly go back to the agenda for today's as well. Let's take a quick look on what's being planned for today evening. We will begin with an insightful masterclass, followed by a product demo, and concluding it with an interactive Ask Me Anything session. Each session has been carefully designed to give you practical insights that you can take to your teams and apply that immediately. All right, folks, moment we have been waiting for. Let me kickstart this session by welcoming and introducing our first speaker of the day, Mr. Pritam Debnath. Mr. Pritam Debnath, who is the Senior Director and a Head of Technology AI at Sysco Corporation, is driving the global transformation at the world's largest food service distribution company. Now, he oversees the strategies, architecture, and delivery of Cisco's global AI and automation platform, initiative that are central to the company's digital transformation and AI-first future. Pritam also leads the technology delivery for Cisco's merchandising and inventory management platform and drives the ERP modernization across the enterprise. Very glad to have you here with us today, Pritam. Thank you so much for making yourself available and covering this masterclass session on the theme of AI product design. Over to you now, Pritam. I'm stopping my screen.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Vishal. Vishal, am I audible?
Oh, you're loud and clear, sir. Absolutely
Oh,
audible.
fantastic. Hello, everyone. As Vishal introduced me graciously, Pritam here. Um, I have around 21 years of experience in the field, working in different roles across different technologies, kind of being in the intersection of engineering, and as Vishal mentioned, I lead the global AI technology solutions and platforms at Cisco, as well as our inbound supply chain and merchandising engineering applications. So, um, if you look at my profile, right, and as I wear both horizontal hats, and that's what I meant by having kind of a unique. I have a unique vantage point of sitting in the intersection of product and engineering, and this topic is extremely close to my heart. So without further ado, let me share my screen. And Vishal, is my screen visible?
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is visible.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about designing AI native user experiences. Now, when this invite came to me, it took me down a bit to a memory lane because I have been living this for I think a bit more than a decade in terms of product design, product leadership, and I definitely see I'm definitely seeing the industry evolving and changing. And essentially, where we are today, I think it's an inflection point where we are pretty much at a fork in the road, where we are not. I think for the first time in our history, we are not just creating products and creating user experience for a human user, but actually even to a non-human AI agents, right? So that makes it scary, but that makes it equally interesting and exciting. So that's where I wanted to drive this conversation to. And again, I would, as Vishal said, the best way I think we can spend this 45 minutes is to be interactive. So I'll try to wrap this up in 25, 30 minutes, and we can have the rest for Q&A. And I'd love to collaborate with you all. So essentially, if you look at the theme here, we are trying to building products that people trust, enjoy, understand, and enjoy, not just for the human users, but also for the AI agents who are acting alongside them, right? Um, so with that, I mean, we'll cover multiple different topics in this, and it's we can talk about this probably for not just for 45 minutes, or probably for 4 hours, or and even more. So this is more the tip of the iceberg, or scratching the surface a bit in terms of where human-centered design is evolving in the age of AI. And then we'll talk about explainable AI, multimodal interactions, responsible personalization, and most essentially, how do you build trust through transparency and control? And I'll also talk, yeah, I'll try to give real examples for as many of the situations, or as many of the examples that I can. And then we'll also talk about what a potential day in a life would look like in terms of product management in the age of AI. So with that, if we are talking about the evolution of human-centered design, think about, well, my professional journey started in mid 2000s, 2005 to be precise, straight out of college. So I think that time we were at an interesting place where we were actually navigating through the traditional or classic GUI and usability, where we are when as we were developing applications and products, we were designing for the mouse, making software learnable, etc. And then as we were moving towards the early 2000s and the mid 2000s, etc., um, we started and patterns started to emerge, and that's what we called as human-centered design. Now, what is human-centered design? I mean, of course, the buzzword aside, the core principle of human-centered design is to keep a human experience in the fulcrum, at the center of any product design, right? So essentially, from a mindset where technology teams used to deliver product for purely from a technology perspective, right? And then there was always this friction of the actual user, the end user, and the technology team, right? Human-centered design tried to bridge that gap when at the beginning of the product design itself, it almost created a culture of co-innovation where the engineering teams, the product teams, and the end users business kind of co-innovated or co-designed a product. So what happened was it created empathy, it gave more context to the user, and because of that, the business users were always better aligned to the design, the roadmap, the execution, and that always helps in better adoption, because at the end of the day, any product is as good or as bad as the adoption. right? So that's where kind of that's where human-centered design was trying to evolve. And now, as you know, I jokingly say it's like, AD and BC. We almost have a pre-chat GPT and post-chat GPT era. So as we are talking about the agentic era, where we're talking about a lot of AI native product design, agent aware product design, it's not enough to just do human centered design, or design only for humans. It is also important to design for the agents who are acting for them. So, as you know, I'm pretty sure most of you already have seen like some of Gartner's assessment that by 2030, almost 25% of e-commerce, or 25% of our online shopping could be done by agents. So it's very important for the, and this is the first time as we are talking, we are designing not just for people, but for the agents that can reason, decide, and act alongside them. So with that, as we were talking about agents and we were talking about human, it becomes imperative for us to, responsible AI does not only remain a theoretical proposition, a buzzword. We need to imbibe it to the very core of our product design, right? So we talk about, so there are multiple tenets or pillars, as you know, we could explain for responsible AI design. The first one, which I think is extremely important, is transparency. Essentially, if we are putting, for an example, I'll give you real life example. So, one project, one project that I was being part of, where we were creating a product to improve forecasting, demand forecasting, and the human in the loop portion, where previously the demand planners, or business users, right, they used to work on a lot of forecast exceptions. Think about how a demand fluctuation get generated, why is this demand fluctuating, etc. And they have to do a lot of analysis across multiple systems and ERPs and whatnot. So we created an end-to-end agentic workflow, where not only did, so the agentic workflow had a model, had a advanced forecasting model ensemble, which helped with better forecasting, and it reduced the overall forecast exceptions that a human being had to touch. Now, but still there are human in the loop, of course, right? Where we are talking about some of the forecast exceptions which still needs human decision. It comes in a workflow management system. Now, it is very important. The technology is, as I always say, I think technology is a relatively easier piece, but essentially, how do we make our users trust AI? And that's where transparency come into picture. When we design the product in that human in the loop workflow management solution, we should have placeholders, we should have proper widgets, we should have proper components that actually explains in plain English why AI is recommending something, right? And that's what I mean by transparency. Why it acted is very important. The same with explainability, right? The reason that we are talking about the transparency, why it acted, make it inspectable, so that people can actually not only just trust that AI summary, but they can actually inspect it. They can leave breadcrumbs to the actual system of execution or system of records. Um, Fairness, of course, and I think we have traversed a quite a long way on that, but think about societal bias as we are training AI. How do we make sure AI don't get fed, or AI will get fed data from all nook and corner? So it's up to us to design things responsibility, so that it, so that the responsibility, so that the inference that AI draws does not have a bias, whether it is gender bias, whether it is any societal bias of any kind. Uh, Privacy and security, and this is not just for AI, as you know, but AI The whole AI era has accentuated the need for privacy and security. I talked about human oversight, which is essentially the human in the loop, because it also helps at the end of the day in adoption, right? And human in the loop also is not a black and white kind of a construct. What happens is the more trust people grows on the solution, I think the human oversight kind of is dynamic and fluid and gets lesser and lesser. And then of course accountable. Who is accountable for the outcomes? Is it the model? Is it AI? No. At the end of the day, we also need to be accountable for the recommendations, the outcomes that an AI is generating. So those are some of the key tenets of responsible AI from a design perspective that we have. We have employed a lot in terms of everything that we are designing in terms of products. Multimodal integration, again, this is again where I think at the end of the day, if you look at any product, a product is a microcosm of an organization. And at the end of the day, an organization is a microcosm of the society. So at this point of time, if you look at society itself, you know, the society has gotten faster, the society has gotten more, interactions have gotten more fluid, and the same trend, the same pattern has reflected in products also, right, which is very natural. So people are moving fluidly between senses. So previously, which was just people were restricted to a more desktop experience. Now it is not just, of course, and then it came the then we came to the mobile era, mobile and PDA era, and now it is the importance of multimodal interaction cannot be overstated. So think of voice and vision and text chat, even like AR glasses with gesture and spatial computing. And what we are seeing is when user are interacting with AI, it is not just good enough to create a product just for a desktop or a laptop or a mobile. We should make it multimodal, should be, and again, it depends on the use case, right? And the flip side is also true. If you look at the practical use cases, it's very important to know which of your product, and that's, as us all in the product organization, we are pretty much living this every day, where we assess our product. Is that product important? Who are our product's main audience, right? Are they mobile? Are they somebody who is actually working on a laptop or a desktop? So based on that, we take conscious decisions. So again, this is not necessarily pertaining just for AI. This is actually for any good product design in this era, but just that the AI burst has accentuated it. With that, of course, comes personalization. So think of the world, and of course, I have lived through this when we were talking about persona based. We talk about we talked about user focused or user centered, human centered design, where the user persona is at the fulcrum of a digital transformation. But then that persona sometimes are static, right? And essentially, what how we used to design a user experience is essentially go by like a persona segment or group. So essentially, if the group is, let's say it's an inventory planner, then you show a certain screen. If you're talking about a merchandiser, you show a certain screen. And if you are a customer experience executive, show a certain experience. So what happened was, for the whole segment or for the whole group, it was one type of experience, right? Now it is evolving even more. User wants more and more control. There are so much data that is being fed in terms of, think about click stream, think about user behavior, right? Context engineering, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard about context. And context is not just a word now, it's a technical term, right? So how do you to make sure AI is actually assisting a user? it's very important to log, to understand the context of any user interaction, the behavior, the intent, and the feedback loop. And with that, think of the whether it is context engineering, whether it's using a proper semantics and ontology. Personalization has revolutionized a lot, where the experience is now tailored to each person and in the moment. So where I'm trying to join the dot is user experience is not just in today's era. The personalization that we are talking about, it's not just traditional UX design. It has to do with when, especially when we are talking about human and agents coexisting, context engineering, semantics, ontology becomes extremely important. So with that, let's talk about some UX patterns, right? For specifically for agentic AI, and one of the I'm pretty sure some of you, if not most of you, have probably have some experiences with that. But essentially, the anchor, I'm going to talk about a pattern which is AGUI, which is agent and user interaction. So think of the pre-agentic era, right? Where you think about the ERPs, the SAPs of the world, or the Oracles of the world, or whatever. Think of any big, even if it's not ERP. Think of like Salesforce, the CRMs, the Salesforce of the world, etc. A lot of focus was given to features. I think we created applications based out of features, and UI, or user experience, was kind of the harness that was holding those features. Now what is happening, that the tectonic shift that I say it's happening, is now instead of just human being, you are also dealing with agents. And does agent really care about n number of clicks and moving from one screen to another? Really, they really don't. Those are more for, I would say, human, those are more for guiding a human being from one feature to another, or one page to another. But from an agent, at the end of the day, as long as agents have tools, so as you know, in our agentic world, if you think of the LLM as the brain of an agent, the hands and legs are the tools, right? And a tool could be an API, a tool could be a bot, a tool could be another agent. We talk about MCPs and agent to agent interaction, etc. So with all this, API has, I always tell this, API is the new UI, right? So essentially, instead of revolving a product around features and user experience, a lot of a lot of the new applications, the new age agentic applications, are revolved around workflow. You basically do what you need to do to complete a workflow, right? And for a workflow, do you really need a static UI screen? No, actually now patterns are emerging. Frameworks are emerging, as I was talking about the AGUI, that's an open framework, and then A2UI, which is agent to user interface, which is done by Google, but it's kind of an open source. Those, so for example, in even like 5 years back, or even a year back, and even now, we do have, let's say, somebody as a user, I want to create a purchase order or a sales order. So there is a certain UI. That UI will have multiple components, multiple widgets, etc., and then the UI will have certain links to other and all. So the question is, when an agent is creating an order, right? The same order, does it really need those UI? Probably not. What it needs is its intent, that it wants to create a purchase order. And then you essentially need the semantics, or the data structure, that to create an order, what exactly do you need? You need like the items that you are ordering. You need the quantity which you want to order, right? And then a lot of it is, of course, automatically decided, based on automatically decided by the system. So if you look at frameworks, if you look at something like A to UI, so today I can, instead of actually creating a user interface of like a purchase order creation user interface or a sales order creation user interface, I can simply type, help me create a purchase order, right? And then if I put the semantics, if I put the structure of like what the data structure of a purchase order look like, AI is now, and leveraging A to UI, for example, right? AI is now creating a UI on the fly, on the runtime, right? And those UI is never stored. So if I am telling, help me create a purchase order, there are two ways, of course. There will be back and forth questions where AI is coming, okay, I'll help you create the purchase order. How many, what's your quantity, what are some of the items, etc., etc. So it's essentially back and forth and create a bit of friction. So instead, what is happening now is AI is actually creating a UI on the fly, so that you can quickly put your whatever items, etc., that you need. But the good part is that UI is only valid for that session, and we really do not have to create a very elaborate UI, a very elaborate static UI. So I think that is creating a lot of. I think that will revolutionize how we design product, how we design experience in the product, and of course, you all know about MCP, where an agent essentially use MCP or A2A to kind of have a really holistic toolkits so that the agent can actually perform that task end to end. So at the end of the day, when Salesforce is talking about like headless ERP, we are talking about like headless applications. That's what we mean. It's not necessarily that the application itself, like I think the core is shifting from features to workflow. The core is shifting to API. So as long as you have API, that's your currency. Now, those are some of the tools. So that's a very interesting industry shift, a technology shift that I'm seeing, and we are kind of living. And I'm really interested about how this evolves. Last but not the least, with all these things, right, with all the work that is happening, with all the disruptions that are happening, how do our life is changing? How is our life changing, right? So when we are talking about AI driven product management, right? How is our day in life transforming? So today, if we are talking about like a core product managers, a traditional product managers, or a product designers, day to day responsibility, you have your kind of manual work. Think of user interviews and questions from your users and business, requirements workshop, design thinking, based on that creating like and it's not just for UX design, it's more on a overall product management, creation of your BRDs, your PRDs, etc., etc., doing a lot of data analysis, and then creating your agile user stories, epics, and then eventually, of course, you're the strategic collaboration, decision making, and reviews. Now, what is happening is AI is ensuring that there is a lot less time spent on those manual activities, and you spend a lot more time in strategic collaboration and solution prototyping. And even that, the solution prototyping, etc., is getting accelerated big time, right? So we are talking about 2x or 3x productivity. So think of the Microsoft 365 copilots to help you with the core kind of product strategy, business call summarization, BRD preparation, etc. You have tools like Lovable and Replit and Claude Design, which is helping you orchestrating some of the product management workflows and help you with end to end, not only just prototyping. The lead time for prototyping has shrunk significantly. What used to take for a product manager work with the UX designers back and forth, and used to take probably a week or a couple of weeks, now takes a day at the max, or at the max like couple of days. And of course, once we are done with the prototyping, then of course you have your SDLC tools, whether it's GitHub Copilot or Cursor, etc. Similarly, whether it is Amazon or Google, BigQuery, etc. That those are helping with talking to the data. So that's very important. Any product strategy at this point of time, I'm also seeing a shift in terms of less of a dashboard and more of like what we call as AI for BI, right? And then of course there are different, think of Atlassian, think of ServiceNow agents, which helps in like incident analysis, user story, backlog management. So overall, as a package, I think this is helping the teams, the product management teams, as well as the engineering teams, uh, to navigate product design in the age of an UI, in the age of AI. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. So in long story short, I think times are changing and it's changing fast. The core tenets of product design is changing, where we are not only designing for human, we are also designing for agents, and that has a shift in people, process, and technology. Think of your process changing, your day in a life changing from a people perspective. Think of your technology changing, so patterns like, or technology shifts like AGUI and A2UI, etc., is coming into picture. So again, people, process, technology, exciting times, and there is no better time, I would say, to design products, design exciting products, and glad to be living in this time. So with that, that's pretty much what I had. I will stop sharing so that I could see you all, and let me take a couple of questions.
Is there, can you enable the chat option as well?
Yeah, it's done, Vishal.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Esther. All right.
Any question, team? Yeah.
Folks, raise your hand and I can ask you to unmute and you can ask directly the question to Pritam. Go ahead, Ram. Uh, if you can just raise your hand, I can quickly unmute you. All right. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Pritam. Very powerful session. You uh, simplified the concept up to a certain level, and it was so easy to understand what you are talking about. I have one question regarding the UX patterns for the agentic AI. Um, so you mentioned during the MCP apps, right? So the even the agent can generate the interface on the runtime. And if that is for the users or for the agents, if because what I'm thinking is, if for users, if the UI is getting generated at runtime, the experience will be different all the time when they open the page, and that may disrupt or maybe disturb the user because they cannot connect with the same website or maybe same app opening differently all the time. So yeah, maybe you can talk about that.
No, absolutely. And Ram, great point. So the user experience, so the user experience will not be different for the same intent. Like, let me put it that way. So, for example, if I am asking to create, again, a genuine example. If I am asking AI to create a purchase, help me create a purchase order for me, every time I ask AI to create that purchase order, the same UI would come to me, because at the end of the day, what happens with things like A2UI and all is, for a purchase order, you whatever data you need, the semantics, etc., you put it, to store it as a JSON, right? and based on that, AI will kind of deliver the same screen, right? So it's kind of similar to the traditional world itself, where of course a purchase order, forget AI, right? A purchase order creation screen will be totally different to let's say an item management or item maintenance screen, right? Even in today's world, same there in A2 UI or the AI user pattern. It's just that you will not have to look at a full-fledged application UI every time. Based on your intent, based on your context, AI will generate the screen. But for the same context, for similar ask, the screen also will be similar.
I see. I see. I get you. Thanks you for clarifying.
Yeah, no, anytime. I think Kishore has his hand up.
Hi, Pritam. It's really good talk, actually. You put up a lot of very insightful points there. So, actually, I have the same question in a way, but I want to take the second question which I'm having in my mind. Okay, if APIs is the new UI, okay, what role should be the product designers going to play? In the total defining the total schema or agentic workflows or API sentiments. What is the kind
Yeah,
of? It's a new language, as you mentioned.
yep. No, 100%. And and I kind of give the analogy of flying the plane while fixing the engine. So I definitely don't claim myself to know all this, right? And we are navigating this all together. But
Right.
how I look at it, Kishore, is the line is blurring. Line is blurring big time, right? The where previously you used to have a somewhat clear line between product and engineering. Now it's not, right? So if you look at and at some point of time, I think AI will change some of the job descriptions itself, where with AI, right, a product manager will have tools in his or her armory where he or she does not only have to do like UX design, for example, right? He or she will probably spend that time creating context. I think context will be the new secret sauce. So the role for a product manager or a product designer will also be to create context, to create intent, to help the putting the guardrails so that again, I don't think the role will become obsolete. I think just that the character of the role itself will change with different and of course product managers will become much more closer to engineering, and same with engineering, vice versa. An engineering manager previously, where I think the expectation was more the engineering team will be kind of the back end team who will just be hands on keyboard, working on requirements. That will not be I don't think that will be valid anymore. I think the engineering team also needs to be equally close to the product, and the product team needs to be equally close to engineering. So overall, I think the line will really, really blur, and which is not a bad thing. I think everybody becoming close to the P&L, everybody getting close to the business intent and context cannot be a bad thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Aniruddha.
Hi. Hi, Pritam. Very good session, Pritam. The landscape that is changing and everything that was really insightful. In some of our companies, like we are doing we are going in the same journey. But what and all the problems that you are facing in this particular journey, Pritam? Is there anything that your team or you are actually facing,
Yeah.
or how you have actually overcome those problems?
Yeah, great question. And I think the first problem, it's not I definitely don't see it as a problem, Aniruddha, but it's just, I think it's a byproduct of any change. Change is never simple, right? And forget to end users who are not that close, sometimes not that close to technology, but even for technology teams, right? Um, First thing is See, at the end of the day, as I keep telling, technology is probably the easier aspect to. Most importantly, we are talking about like change management. How do you change the culture, etc. Right? So, number one, first challenge is whenever we talk about any AI product design. There is always this lingering thought that okay, there are certain things that will be automated, some of the workflow that will be potentially be agentic. What does that, how does that leave the users, right? So one of the challenge that you can always face is users becoming a bit defensive, and in terms of not giving proper requirements which can which can be disruptive. One of the ways I always tackle this situation and my team is just be transparent, right? So at the end of the day, transparency is a huge weapon in this case. If we tell the full story in terms of where exactly AI is coming into the picture, where exactly human in the loop is coming into the picture, and how AI is actually enhancing or augmenting those people, right? Of course, this is not just a product teams. It's more of a culture. It's a company shift. It's a company culture shift. But those are that's probably the most important, or that's probably the biggest challenge that I have faced. The other challenge I have faced is even from a developer or development team or the technology team's perspective, right? With, say, for example, tools like a Lovable, or tools like Claude Design, Claude in general, right? It raises the same question to people, like, okay, if Claude is, or Gemini or whoever, right? Cursor or Cognition is doing certain things of products, and then we also are also talking about things like spec driven development. How does that leave our technology team? It's the same answer there as well, right? So at the end of the day, I think the skill set changes. It's not necessarily, of course, nobody is denying it. There's no point kind of hiding behind the bush that everything is going to be exactly the same. Absolutely not. Things have already changed, right? But what that means is, I think the skill set changes, and people who are more adaptable, I think learnability becomes extremely important. So that helps in shifting the narrative a bit, and get people rallied. Technology wise, I think one of the challenge that we face, again, I think it's a lesser challenge, is just the constant churn, right? It just is like it's like a revolving door. So those are some of the challenges that we were facing. And again, I would say learnability and adaptability is the absolute key there.
Thanks, Pritam. And one more question. So, uh, uh, once you have integrated the agents and everything with respect to the user experience, have you
Mhm.
seen more traction in terms of the experience of the customers?
Absolutely. Well, it depends on the quality of those applications, but a well-made agentic application has definitely resulted. I have seen that. I'm seeing it. So, for example, right? If I gave an example during the session, right? That we were creating a forecasting agent. So let's say I'm a user, and previously I had to deal with, like, I don't know, around 200 forecast exceptions every week, and forecast exceptions also have to go to different system, this system, that report, this and that, this Excel sometimes, to make sense out of these demand fluctuations, right? Now imagine AI is giving it all at your fingertips. You are, of course, you start being a bit skeptic, right? You're like, okay, I don't trust AI, which is very natural. That's not a bad thing at all. Um, but then once you see, no, actually, what I would have done the maths, AI had actually done the same math, so it's good. Now the trust increases again and again, and without them realizing, after like 4 weeks or 5 weeks, they themselves are pinging me like, okay, you know what? Now instead of 200, I'm actually dealing with only for 50 exceptions. And even those 50 exceptions, I have the secondary analysis in my fingertip, so I can focus on this, which I was not able to focus previously. Just an example, Ani, but that's like that's just an example of if it is well made and if it is done with responsible AI in mind and with a proper human in the loop, it will definitely create more traction in the daily life of a user.
Thanks, Prem. Thanks.
Maybe last question, Ria. Ria, if you're talking, you're muted.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Why not?
Yes, I wanted to ask that we use AI, Claude and Cursor models to basically create agentic workflows these days to help AI as a product designer. I do that because I do not know how to code, so I would use the help of AI models itself to create evaluation pipelines to create hooks and everything. So, basic workflow setup for product design. Uh, so earlier we had product design, some of the best product design books and references to see whether to guide our thinking. But right now, we do not know whether personally, I do not know how much I can trust an AI model to write the correct sort of workflow for me or the basic nitty-gritties of that workflow. So I don't have a Bible to guide the AI or to feed the AI to benchmark that whatever technical stuff you are doing for my workflow, this is the kind of benchmark you need to have. I have that for design outputs, but I don't have that for AI workflow and AI workflow engine outputs. What do you think are some of the Bibles or references out there, or anything that you feel is right to benchmark AI to create the right kind of these workflows when I'm automating the entire process to it, which I'm not well versed about it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, great question, and it's a loaded question. So when I talk about like a Bible or when you talk about a Bible or a benchmark, right? You actually brought up a very good point that you are not a coder or a technical user, but you are using Claude and others, Gemini and others to create workflow. Now, that's one word of caution, right? That does not necessarily mean that. So there's a lot of POC sprawl, right? So a lot of time what happens is it's very important when you graduate a agentic use case or an AI use case from POC to MVP to actual scale, there is still a need for engineering because at the end of the day, I think that's where engineering new responsibility would lie in the future to create those guardrails. So when you talk about Bible, right? I would say those the Bible really depends on those contexts. So who are feeding the guidances, the guardrails, the FinOps, like talk about tokenomics, like how much token an AI agent is taking, right? So those are something. I think there are certain guardrails, there are certain frameworks. Ria, I mean, it's tough to kind of explain all this in like a minute, but do feel free to reach out to me. I mean, there are multiple angles at which we should create those guardrails. Number one is think about security, right? Number two is how do you really scale that AI? How do you deploy those agentic solutions? Number three, as I was telling you, as you were saying that you are less comfortable about the workflow as such, that's where kind of explainability comes into picture. So when you design it, and that's where engineering kind of comes into picture, that it's not just an enterprise does not always live with vibe coding, right? So how do you design that? And number four, of course, is FinOps, the economics of it, the token economics of it. So think of all these 4 5 different angles to create that quote unquote Bible, right? But that's like that itself. The answer to your question itself kind of warrants almost a different session in its own. Yeah, but I'll like feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to collaborate on that.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Pritam, there are few questions in the Q&A box as well. Manishwini has asked the question, Hi Pritam, you told a lot of importance was given to features initially, but now it's that we are dealing with agents too. So won't it affect the user empathy and user-centric design approaches? I think you covered this point as well, but yeah, happy to listen again from you.
Yeah, no, I think at the end of it will not, because I think the core is not changing, right? The user is still at the fulcrum, at the base. It's just that the user is not only human, right? We also have to look at human as well as agents. Now, when we are talking about features, right? I think at the end of the day, how AI is changing a lot of the tasks that a traditional user would do in his or her day in the life is changing anyways. It's changing rapidly. So with AI, the expectation is also rising for that user. So for example, I am the user, right? So I am using an ERP. I'm using SAP or Oracle or whatever, or Coupa. So and previously I had the time to, let's say, I have to deal with like 20 vendors, and I have to deal with all their purchase orders, etc., etc. So I was doing that. Now with AI, my management, my leadership is expecting me to handle 80 vendors instead of 20, because agents are automating a lot of my workflow. So I really don't have the time to move from one screen to another screen to another screen to another screen to actually complete a workflow. I would also appreciate if there is an agent which will help me just take care of the workflow for me, right? I really don't care about the fidelity of this button and that button and this radio and all these things. Just take care of the workflow, and that's where I was telling the mindset. It's not necessarily changing the shifting the focus from the user. I think the user, the demand from the user itself is evolving, and technology is just evolving to satisfy that.
That's all, Pritam. That's all for the Q&A today. Let me just quickly share my screen. Uh, Thank you so much for delivering such a powerful insights, Pritam. Token of appreciation from our side, just wanted to share with you. We'll definitely share your soft copy too, for the matter. And thank you again for sharing your amazing insight today at the Global Product Leadership Festival. Thank you so much, Pritam.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all.
All right, folks, we have the next session coming up. Till that time, we can take 3 minutes break over here. The next session is with Amit Pandey. He has also joined in, by the way. So thank you, Amit, for joining in with us today as well.
Okay, thanks, Vishal. Thanks for having me here.
Yes. So, folks, we'll take 3 minutes of break over here. We'll be joining sharp at 7:55 p.m. Till the time, you can have your coffee. Coffee is better in that way. Yeah. Thank you so much, folks.